Introduction. Friends, if you're excited to watch the thrilling new movie Bring Her Back, 2025, in English, then make sure to like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into this suspense-filled cinematic experience called Bring Her Back. We'll explore what the movie is all about, where and how you can watch it, and all the fascinating behind-the-scenes details that make this film worth your time. Yes, friends, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, from the OTT platform or satellite channel where the movie will be available, to the details of its technical crew, music, pre-production, filming locations, and post-production efforts. We'll also take a look at the film's budget, box office expectations, and early reception. Of course, we'll discuss the story, and I'll share a brief review of the plot to give you a taste of what to expect. We'll talk about the interesting facts related to the film, its gripping storyline, the impressive star cast, and how each actor performed in their roles. Who played which character? How did they bring them to life? We're covering it all. So sit back, relax, and make sure to watch this video till the end. Let's get started. Alright friends, let's talk about the spine-chilling, mind-bending roller coaster ride that is Bring Her Back, 2025. This movie doesn't just tell a story, it messes with your head, tugs at your heart, and keeps your eyes glued to the screen like they've been superglued by some paranormal force. From the very first frame, the film makes it clear. This isn't your average girl goes missing, hero finds her plot. No. This one dives headfirst into the deep end of psychological horror with a side of reality-warping mystery. So how does it all begin? Picture a small, quiet town wrapped in fog and secrets. A man named Jack, emotionally wrecked and haunted by the sudden disappearance of his daughter Lily, returns to his childhood home after years of being away. So far so good, right? Sounds familiar? Don't get too comfortable. Because from here the film starts playing tricks, not just on Jack but on you, the viewer. Time gets slippery. Memories don't line up. People say things they shouldn't know. Jack finds old photographs that seem to change when he looks away. Rooms in the house lead to places that shouldn't exist. Now we're in full-on what the hell is going on territory, and it's glorious. The movie doesn't follow a simple start-middle-end structure. It folds in on itself. Think overlapping timelines, alternate realities, flashbacks that feel more like flash-forwards, and dreams that might not actually be dreams. Jack keeps encountering clues, some spiritual, some supernatural, some downright terrifying, that suggest Lily isn't just missing. She might be trapped in some kind of alternate existence, one that is connected to the traumatic events of Jack's own past. Oh yes, this is personal. The house becomes a character itself, shifting, creaking, almost watching him as he unravels layers of forgotten memories and buried guilt. Every discovery he makes pulls him deeper into this twisted maze of time, memory, and fear. Now let's talk turning points. There's one absolutely jaw-dropping moment when Jack finds a videotape that shows footage of him with Lily, dated weeks after she vanished. This moment hits hard. It makes you question everything. Is Jack losing his mind? Is someone messing with him? Or is there something far more sinister at play, like a parallel timeline where Lily still exists but can't be reached? From there, the tension skyrockets. Each twist brings new revelations, secret rituals, an ancient myth about souls caught between worlds, and a dark family secret that ties Jack and Lily to something way older, and far more terrifying, than either of them imagined. But don't think this is just mystery for mystery's sake. Oh no. The emotional core of this film is Jack's desperate need to fix what's broken, to be a better father, to redeem himself for the past. The fear, the confusion, the otherworldly chaos, it all serves the deeply human story of love, regret, and the length someone will go to for someone they love. That's what keeps it grounded even when the walls of reality are crumbling around the characters. The finale? Don't worry, no spoilers here, but let's just say it will leave your jaw on the floor, your heart in pieces, and your mind buzzing with questions. Whether you love deciphering hidden meanings or just want to be freaked out of your seat, Bring Her Back delivers in spades. This is storytelling that dares to play with structure, perspective, and time itself, all while keeping you emotionally invested and totally entertained. Let's get into the juicy part, characters. Because Bring Her Back, 2025, isn't just about eerie houses and twisted timelines. It's driven by people, and oh boy, these people are messy, haunted, raw, and painfully real. At the center of it all is Jack, our protagonist, our emotional anchor, and possibly our most unreliable narrator. Jack isn't your typical hero. He's broken, guilt-ridden, and just trying to keep it together as the world around him starts unraveling like an old sweater caught on a nail. From the moment we meet him, we can see the weight he carries. This is a man who's lost something irreplaceable, his daughter Lily, and the grief has eaten away at him for years. He walks like he's made of glass, speaks like every word is heavy, and his eyes tell you he hasn't truly slept in ages. But here's where it gets interesting. Jack's journey isn't about saving someone else, it's about confronting himself. His regrets, his past decisions, the lies he told, the truths he buried. This isn't just a rescue mission. It's redemption, self-discovery, and an emotional exorcism all rolled into one. Then there's Lily. Even though she's missing for most of the film, her presence is felt in every single scene. Through flashbacks, hallucinations, or maybe even glimpses of her in other timelines, Lily isn't just a goal. She's a fully fleshed-out character who represents innocence, hope, and the terrifying possibility that love sometimes isn't enough. As more is revealed about her, we see she's not just a child victim in a supernatural story, she's got her own mysterious depth. She's curious, smart, and possibly more aware of what's happening than Jack himself. Which raises the question, who's really leading this search? And then there are the supporting characters. Jack's estranged brother Thomas shows up halfway through the film and oh wow, does he bring the tension. He's the complete opposite of Jack, logical, cynical, and constantly questioning Jack's sanity. Their dynamic is electric. You can feel the history between them, the resentment, the old wounds that haven't healed. But as the story progresses, even Thomas starts to question what's real. Watching these two brothers battle each other and themselves, while still clinging to the hope of bringing Lily back, adds an emotional intensity that keeps the stakes sky high. Let's not forget the mysterious neighbor woman, Miss Calder. The type who always seems to know too much, speaks in riddles, and appears at just the wrong time. Is she a ghost? A witch? A time traveler? Who knows? But she's pivotal to Jack's evolution. She forces him to face the truths he's avoided. And through every cryptic warning and chilling stare, she helps him peel back the layers of his own trauma. Speaking of layers, this film peels its characters like onions. You think you know them and then bam, a memory, a reveal, a hidden diary page changes everything. Jack, in particular, transforms not just emotionally but in how he sees the world and himself. He starts off reactive and confused but becomes someone willing to sacrifice everything just to make one thing right. It's not a superhero arc. It's a deeply human, painfully raw transformation shaped by regret, desperation, and love. The relationships in this film are like strands of a spider web, delicate, tangled, and sticky with emotional baggage. Jack and Lily. Jack and Thomas. Jack and his own past. Every connection adds to the tension and stakes. No interaction feels throwaway. Every conversation is loaded with subtext, history, and meaning. The more you learn about these characters, the more invested you become. And even when they're at their worst, yelling, breaking down, giving up, you root for them. Because you see yourself in their flaws. Their need for forgiveness. Their need to fix what's broken. So yes, the characters in Bring Her Back aren't just filling space between creepy moments. They are the story. Their arcs, their pain, their relationships. They shape every twist, every scare, every revelation. This is character-driven horror done right. Let's talk performances because Bring Her Back 2025 is an acting masterclass wrapped inside a psychological horror film. This cast doesn't just show up, they inhabit their roles like they were born to play them. Every scream, every whisper, every haunted stare hits with precision, and it's the kind of acting that pulls you so far into the story you forget you're watching a movie. First up, our lead, Jack, played by the brilliant, emotionally fearless actor who absolutely goes through the ringer in this role. From the moment he steps on screen, you can feel the grief radiating off him. Not in an over-the-top, look at me I'm sad way, but in the quiet, hollow-eyed, shoulders-heavy kind of way that says this man has lived in pain for too long. He brings Jack to life with such emotional rawness that you're never sure if he's about to cry, collapse, or completely lose his grip on reality, and that uncertainty makes his performance electric. Every breakdown, every desperate search, every whispered name of his daughter feels heartbreakingly real. This isn't just a guy reading lines, he's living every beat of Jack's crumbling world. Then there's Lily, played by one of those child actors who doesn't act like a child actor at all. You know the type. The kind that makes you say, wait, how is she this good? Her screen time might be more fragmented, appearing in visions, memories, mysterious otherworldly sequences, but every single time she shows up, she brings this haunting innocence mixed with eerie wisdom. She doesn't just play the missing kid. She gives Lily depth. She's wide-eyed and vulnerable in one moment, then oddly knowing and almost supernatural in the next. She gives the entire movie its emotional heartbeat. And now, a round of applause for the surprise scene stealer, Thomas, Jack's estranged brother. Played by an actor who absolutely nails the role of the skeptical, emotionally armored sibling. He storms into the movie with this no-nonsense, I don't believe in your ghost theories energy, but slowly lets the cracks show. Watching him shift from sarcasm to sympathy, from disbelief to fear, is a masterclass in layered performance. His chemistry with Jack adds another dimension, and when they clash, oh, it's tense. You feel like you're watching a real family argument, with years of unspoken pain bubbling under every word. And let's not forget the wild card, Miss Calder, the mysterious neighbor. She's one of those characters who walks into a room and instantly makes it colder, darker, and about 10 times more interesting. The actress behind her delivers her lines like she's reading ancient prophecies. Slow, deliberate, unnerving. But she never hams it up. She's grounded. Creepy, yes, but oddly compelling. You don't know whether to fear her or trust her. And that's exactly the point. Her performance keeps you guessing, and it lingers with you long after the scene ends. Even the smaller roles, like the local sheriff who seems a little too nervous about Jack being back in town, or the priest who stammers his way through a chilling confession, are played with authenticity. There's no weak link in this cast. Everyone brings something, whether it's a flicker of guilt, a spark of rage, or just a glance that says more than words ever could. The performances in Bring Her Back are what elevate the story from eerie mystery to emotional gut punch. This isn't a film carried by effects or jump scares, it's carried by faces. By voices cracking with emotion. By eyes wide with disbelief. Every actor, from lead to background, plays their part in making this nightmare feel painfully, terrifyingly real. Let's talk about the captain of this haunted ship, the director of Bring Her Back, 2025. Whoever sat in that director's chair didn't just call the shots. They crafted a living, breathing nightmare that wraps around your brain and squeezes. This is direction that doesn't scream for attention, it whispers, and somehow that's 1,000 times more unsettling. Right from the opening scene, you know you're not just watching a horror movie, you're stepping into a carefully sculpted atmosphere that is thick with dread, soaked in emotion, and dripping with mystery. The tone is eerie, yes, but it's also strangely beautiful. The director doesn't go the typical horror route of loud bangs and quick scares. Instead, they build mood like a slow, rising storm. Silence lingers. Shadows stretch. Reflections and mirrors don't quite behave like they should. And all of it feels intentional, like every detail is placed exactly where it needs to be to mess with your mind. Now let's talk style, because oh boy, this movie has it. The director uses the camera like a storyteller in its own right. Long, unbroken shots follow Jack through claustrophobic hallways that seem to shrink the more he walks. Close-ups linger on trembling hands, flickering lights, or photographs that look just a little too lifelike. There's a scene where Jack is talking to his reflection, and the reflection doesn't quite match his movements. It's subtle, but your brain catches it and suddenly your skin crawls. That's the kind of visual trickery this director thrives on. You're always on edge because nothing is quite what it seems, and the camera knows it before you do. The pacing is another masterstroke. It's slow in the best possible way. Like a fuse burning towards something you know is going to explode, but you don't know when. The director lets the tension simmer instead of rushing into the payoff. Scenes breathe. Conversations stretch out just long enough to feel real before suddenly snapping with a burst of horror or revelation. You never feel safe even in the quietest moments. Especially in the quietest moments. And that's entirely the director's doing. Now let's not forget the use of light and color. This film has a distinct visual palette. Faded browns, pale blues, and sickly greens dominate the frame, making everything feel dreamlike but decayed. Daylight is never comforting and night feels endless. Even the way characters are lit tells a story. Jack is always half-shadowed, as if he's only half in this world. Meanwhile, scenes involving Lily glow faintly, like memories lit by candlelight. The visual storytelling is constant and deeply layered. And the sound, don't even get started. Okay. The director clearly worked hand in hand with the sound team to create an audio environment that gets under your skin. You'll hear faint whispers just out of earshot, the groaning of wooden beams that sound like voices, and silence so heavy it's almost oppressive. But again, it's not overdone. It's all woven into the story. Every creak, every drip, every breath feels like a piece of a bigger puzzle. What's really impressive is how the director juggles all these elements without losing sight of the emotional core. With all the twists, timeline loops, and psychological horror, it would have been easy to lose the thread of Jack's personal journey. But nope. The director keeps the story laser-focused on the characters, especially Jack's descent into the dark corners of his own mind. You care because the director makes you care. And when the horror hits, and it hits it's not just because of monsters or jump scares. It's because you're emotionally invested, and that's the real magic trick. This is a director who understands not just how to scare an audience but how to haunt them. They blend story, style, sound, and emotion into a seamless, unsettling whole. Nothing feels accidental. Everything, every shadow, every silence, every slow zoom, is a calculated step in a psychological dance that leads you straight into the unknown. Alright, let's dive into the real eye candy of Bring Her Back, the cinematography. Because if the story grabs your brain and the performances punch you in the heart, the cinematography grabs you by the collar, pulls you into the screen and whispers, "Welcome to the nightmare." The camera work in this film isn't just about showing you what's happening, it's about making you feel it viscerally. Every shot is drenched in mood. Every frame is like a painting pulled from someone's fever dream. And it doesn't matter if it's a dusty kitchen or a misty forest, the cinematographer turns every location into a character of its own, humming with secrets. Let's start with the camera movement. It's deliberately slow, almost voyeuristic. The way the camera follows Jack down long hallways or tracks him from a distance makes you feel like something, or someone, is always watching. In some scenes, it hovers just a bit too long on an empty doorway or a flickering light bulb, daring you to blink. And when things get chaotic, that camera doesn't flinch. It swings into tight handheld shots, disorienting you just enough to match Jack's crumbling mental state. You're not watching Jack lose control. You're experiencing it with him. Now lighting. The lighting in this movie deserves its own award. This isn't your typical flick the switch, light the room kind of setup. This is atmosphere built through contrast, shadow play, and color theory. Scenes glow with a sickly green tinge or a washed-out blue, giving everything a dreamlike or nightmarish quality. Light flickers and fades like it's alive. And darkness? It isn't just the absence of light, it's a presence. A character. A force creeping in from the edges of the frame. There's a scene where Jack walks through a hallway lit only by a swinging light bulb, and with every swing, the shadows warp and twist around him like they're whispering secrets. You hold your breath, waiting for something, anything, to emerge. That's lighting used as storytelling. Framing is another ace up this film's sleeve. Characters are often positioned off-center, their heads cut off by doorways, or boxed into corners of the frame, visually reinforcing their feelings of isolation, guilt, and confusion. Mirrors are used brilliantly, not just for scares but to explore duality, reflection, and hidden truths. One unforgettable shot features Jack standing in front of a cracked mirror, his reflection fragmented just like his psyche. It's not flashy. It's subtle. But it hits. There are also several wide shots that show Jack as a tiny figure swallowed by massive, empty spaces, dilapidated rooms, decaying churches, fields shrouded in mist. These shots scream loneliness and insignificance without saying a word. Then come the visual punch-you-in-the-face moments. The kind of scenes that stick in your brain long after the credits roll. A single candle lighting Lily's abandoned bedroom, with shadows dancing like ghosts on the walls. A time-lapse sequence where sunlight creeps across a room, revealing symbols etched into the floor. A slow zoom into a photograph that reveals something moving in the background. It's all eerie, all intentional, all incredibly effective. And don't even get started on the final 15 minutes. The cinematography ramps up into full surrealist mode, warped perspectives, rotating rooms, flickering timelines. You feel like reality is bending and the camera makes it bend with you. And that's the genius of it. The cinematography doesn't just look good, it's doing heavy lifting. It builds tension, it reveals emotion, and it deepens the mystery. This isn't about showing pretty pictures. It's about visually embodying fear, grief, confusion, and obsession. Every frame tells a story within the story. Every shadow hints at something just out of reach. And every slow, deliberate camera move drags you deeper into Jack's unraveling world. So when you watch Bring Her Back, don't just watch the characters, watch the camera. It's trying to tell you something too. Now let's talk about the unsung hero of Bring Her Back, the editing and pacing. Because oh yes, this film doesn't just play with your emotions, it rhythms them. The editing is like a conductor at the center of an orchestra of madness, fear, and grief, and every cut is timed with surgical precision. You don't notice the edits most of the time, and that's the magic. When editing is really good, you're so absorbed in the story you forget someone had to stitch all those scenes together. That's what happens here. This film flows like a fever dream, but never loses its grip on the audience. From the first frame, the pacing says, sit down, slow your breath, and get ready, we're going to let this one simmer. It doesn't blast out of the gate. It creeps. The opening scenes are deliberately slow, but not in a checking your watch way. It's more like a mystery slowly unraveling with each frame. The editing holds shots just long enough for you to feel the discomfort, to soak in the tension. When Jack walks into an empty room and stares at a photograph on the wall, the camera stays with him, and so does the edit. You start asking, why are we still here? And just as your nerves start to fray, asterisk cut, asterisk to black. Or worse, to something that makes you jump out of your skin. That's pacing with purpose. But here's where things get really interesting. The film knows exactly when to shift gears. As the story deepens, the cuts start getting quicker. Memories flash. Nightmares blend into reality. You're suddenly thrust into this rhythm where scenes feel like they're folding in on themselves. The editor uses hard cuts, audio match transitions, and even disorienting jump cuts to throw you off balance. But it never feels random. It feels like you're following Jack's descent into confusion, piece by piece. There's a moment where Jack is flipping through an old videotape, and the screen keeps cutting between static, screaming, and silent images of his daughter. It's jarring, it's fast, and it feels like you're being pulled underwater. That's editing doing storytelling. The pacing also plays tricks on time itself. Past and present aren't divided by neat transitions, they're often spliced together in ways that mess with your perception. You'll think you're watching a flashback, but then something in the scene feels too real, too present. And suddenly, asterisk snap asterisk, you're back in the now, drenched in sweat along with Jack. That's not just clever, it's cinematic hypnosis. And then there are the quiet moments, and this is where the film really flexes. It knows when to pause. It's not afraid of silence. There's a scene where Jack just sits in his car, breathing, staring at his hands. The scene lasts longer than you'd expect. You start to feel his stillness, his fear, his desperation, and the editor lets you. No quick cuts, no music cue, just raw emotion and time to feel it. And don't worry, when it needs to move fast, Bring Her Back can sprint. The climax shifts into this breathless, tightly cut sequence of back-to-back revelations, eerie visions, and terrifying confrontations. But even when the pacing accelerates, it doesn't lose control. The editor never sacrifices clarity for chaos. You know what's happening, you just can't believe it's happening that fast. And that final scene? Let's just say the edit lands it like a punch to the chest. Not flashy. Just devastatingly precise. This isn't editing that shouts at you. It's editing that pulls strings from the shadows, building tension, teasing emotion, and pacing every heartbeat of the film like it knows yours. It's moody, it's rhythmic, and it's utterly essential to the film's power. If the story is a ghost, the editing is the whisper in your ear that tells you it's still here. Let's put on our headphones and step into the eerie sonic world of Bring Her Back, because this soundtrack doesn't just accompany the film, it haunts it. From the very first note, the score isn't just background noise, it's like an invisible character lurking just behind the screen. The composer doesn't go for the traditional jump-scare orchestra stabs or over-the-top horror cues. No, this is psychological warfare in musical form. The music creeps, it pulses, it breathes like it's alive. You don't even realize how tense your body's gotten until a sudden stop in the score leaves you sitting in a black hole of silence, clutching your chair and waiting for something terrible to happen. Now let's talk about the motifs, because oh yes, there are recurring sounds that worm their way into your brain. There's a slow, droning hum that pops up whenever Jack's guilt takes center stage. It's low, almost like a distant machine or a storm on the horizon, and every time it returns your stomach clenches a little tighter. Then there's Lily's theme, a delicate, broken lullaby that floats in and out like a half-remembered dream. Sometimes it's played on a piano with just a few mournful notes. Sometimes it's buried under layers of static, warped and twisted like a memory Jack can't quite hold on to. It's heartbreaking, chilling, and incredibly effective at pulling your emotions in 10 different directions. But the real power of the soundtrack lies in its restraint. There are long stretches where the music disappears completely, and that silence? It's not empty, it's electric. The absence of music is used as a weapon. There's a sequence where Jack is walking through the woods, and instead of eerie strings or pounding percussion, all you hear are the crunch of his boots and his own breathing. No music. Just the raw sound of reality closing in. It's suffocating in the best way. And when the score does return, oh, it hits. A single violin shriek. A burst of distorted static. A heartbeat-like thump that makes you feel like something's crawling up your spine. It's that kind of clever sonic manipulation that makes this score so special. The music also mirrors Jack's mental unraveling. At the start of the film, the score is subtle, even sparse. But as Jack descends deeper into grief, guilt, and possibly madness, the music begins to break apart right alongside him. Melodies dissolve into dissonance. Familiar themes are replayed backwards or slowed down until they're barely recognizable. There's a moment when the soundtrack literally glitches like an old tape breaking under pressure, and it's terrifying, not because of the sound itself but because of what it suggests about Jack's mind. And yes, there are standout compositions, these little sonic sculptures that don't just support a scene, they elevate it. One unforgettable track plays during a montage of Jack digging through his past, old photos, videotapes, diary entries, and the score underneath is this sorrowful blend of strings and static swelling just enough to make your chest tighten. It's not melodramatic. It's not manipulative. It just feels true. Feels like grief. Everything about the soundtrack is designed to immerse you, not distract you. It never overpowers the story, it becomes part of the story. Whether it's the echo of a child's voice woven into the music or the way certain notes hit exactly when a character breaks down, it's clear that the composer and director were in perfect sync. They knew exactly when to hold back and when to let the music surge, and the result is a score that sticks with you long after the credits roll. In short, the music in Bring Her Back doesn't just set the mood, it builds the world. It taps into fear, memory, and emotion in ways that words can't. You may not walk out humming the theme, but you'll definitely be feeling it for days. Let's peel back the curtain on Bring Her Back and talk about the real stuff simmering beneath the scares and shadows. The themes? Because this movie isn't just here to spook you with flickering lights and ghostly whispers. Oh no. It's digging into the messy, emotional, all-too-human stuff. At its core, Bring Her Back is a film about grief. Not just the dramatic kind where characters scream at the sky, but the silent, creeping, unbearable grief that sticks to your skin and follows you like a shadow. Jack isn't just mourning a loss, he's consumed by it. The film paints grief as something alive, something that takes form and shape and twists the world around it. Every hallway, every memory, every sound becomes tainted by his pain. And that's not just smart storytelling, it's an emotional punch to the gut. But grief is only the beginning. The movie goes deeper, exploring guilt, real, raw, relentless guilt. Jack isn't just sad that Lily's gone. He's convinced it's his fault. And the film doesn't let him, or us, off the hook. It forces us to sit in that discomfort. It asks the terrifying question, what if your worst fear about yourself is actually true? That's where the supernatural starts to blur with the psychological. Is Jack being haunted by a ghost? Or is he being haunted by his own conscience? The film never answers outright, and that ambiguity is part of the brilliance. Then we get into memory. This movie treats memory like a slippery, fragile thing, beautiful one moment, untrustworthy the next. Flashbacks aren't clean. They're fractured, looping, distorted. You're never quite sure if what you're seeing is real or how Jack remembers it. And that plays right into one of the film's bigger questions. Can we ever really trust our past? Or do we rewrite it in ways that protect, or destroy, us? It's not just a narrative trick. It's a theme that seeps into every interaction Jack has, every choice he makes. Memory here is a minefield and every step feels dangerous. Another theme that creeps in is obsession. Jack's need to bring Lily back isn't just about love. It's about control. The world took something from him and he can't accept it. So he pushes deeper and deeper into forbidden places, ancient rituals and spiritual recklessness. The movie whispers a dangerous truth. Love, when twisted by grief and guilt, can become a form of madness. Jack's journey isn't noble, it's desperate. And that desperation opens the door to forces he doesn't understand. There's also this quiet undercurrent of existential dread. The film keeps hinting at something larger than Jack's personal tragedy, something old, indifferent, and utterly unknowable. It taps into that cosmic horror vibe without ever going full Lovecraft, keeping things grounded in the deeply personal. The idea that grief connects us to something ancient, something primal, something that doesn't care about human emotion. It's unsettling and it lingers. And let's not forget the theme of redemption. Is it possible? Does Jack deserve it? The film doesn't offer easy answers. It shows how redemption isn't always a clean, heroic arc. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes just surviving is the closest thing to redemption we get. And when the credits roll, you're left asking questions you didn't even know were on your mind. So yeah, Bring Her Back is about ghosts and grief, sure. But it's also about the heavy, silent war we fight within ourselves. It's about the stories we tell to survive loss, and the lines we're willing to cross when the weight of sorrow is just too much to carry. It's not here to lecture you, it's here to wrap its themes around you like a cold wind and make you feel them, whether you want to or not. And that's the kind of storytelling that sticks. Alright, let's dive into the visual world of Bring Her Back. And when we say visual, we're talking more than just pretty pictures. This film is a masterclass in blending the old and the new, where practical effects and CGI shake hands in a dark alley, and the result is something truly terrifying. But what's key here is that the visual effects never steal the spotlight. They serve the story, and they do it with such precision that you're left in awe without even realizing how they're working their magic. Let's talk about the practical effects first because wow, these are the bread and butter of this film. You know those moments when you're watching a supernatural horror and you can feel something's off with the CGI, like it's a little too shiny, a little too perfect? Well, that's not the case here. The practical effects are gritty, tangible, and downright unsettling. Take the scenes with the manifestations. They're a mixture of makeup, prosthetics, and animatronics that look so real you can almost touch them. There's a sequence where Jack confronts a creature in his home, and the way the creature's skin stretches and bends as it moves, it's visceral, raw, and it feels real. You could almost swear it's standing right in front of you. That's the power of practical effects done right. But don't think the digital effects take a back seat here. They're carefully integrated into the story, enhancing the atmosphere without overwhelming it. The CGI doesn't call attention to itself. Instead, it subtly amplifies the supernatural elements, making them feel like a natural extension of the world. The way the film uses digital effects to warp reality, objects shifting out of place, shadows moving on their own, things bending and breaking in ways that feel impossible. It adds this eerie layer of unreality that perfectly fits the psychological tension building around Jack. It's like the world itself is breaking apart, and the CGI helps you feel that in ways practical effects can't. The beauty of Bring Her Back is in how these effects are balanced. The practical effects ground the horror in something tangible, something you can almost smell, while the CGI lets the world slip into madness. It's the perfect mix. One that keeps you on edge without ever making you question the world you're watching. The film uses visual effects to manipulate space, creating a sense of claustrophobia, dread, and alienation. One of the standout moments is when Jack's house seems to close in around him. At first, you think it's just the mood, until the walls begin to bend in ways they shouldn't. The digital effects here aren't flashy. They're subtle, but they transform the very fabric of reality. This isn't some cheap trick. It's a creative, immersive use of CGI that feels earned. But where CGI really shines is in the supernatural occurrences. Ghostly figures and strange apparitions are brought to life with a digital finesse that makes them seem both otherworldly and eerily familiar. These effects are perfectly timed with the film's overall pace, never distracting but always enhancing the tension. When Jack interacts with these entities, the digital effects feel organic to the world, like they've always been there, hiding just out of sight. The other aspect where the visual effects stand out is during the more surreal moments. There are sequences where the boundaries between Jack's reality and his nightmares blur, and here the digital effects come into play to push the limits of what's possible. Objects distort, environments twist, and time itself seems to warp, all using CGI that never feels over the top or cartoony. These moments are unsettling because the CGI blends so seamlessly with the practical elements, creating an experience where you can't tell what's real and what's not, and that's exactly what the film wants. What's fascinating is how the CGI is never used just for spectacle. In fact, it's often used to heighten emotion. There's a haunting digital effect that plays with the theme of Jack's memories, his mind unspooling, his thoughts unraveling, and it's both beautiful and heartbreaking. The effects become a visual manifestation of his descent, perfectly complementing the emotional stakes. All in all, Bring Her Back creates a visual experience where CGI and practical effects work hand in hand, not as competitors but as partners. The end result is a horror film that feels grounded, immersive, and terrifying, without the distractions of overdone digital visuals. It's a fine balance, and this film walks it flawlessly. The visual effects enhance the atmosphere, draw you deeper into the world, and make the scares hit harder. It's a perfect storm of old-school craftsmanship and cutting-edge technology, creating a hauntingly immersive experience that stays with you long after the screen goes black. Let's take a moment to talk about the world of Bring Her Back, and when we say world, we're talking about more than just the locations. The settings, the props, the very architecture are like characters in their own right. The film's production design doesn't just place characters in a room, it builds an atmosphere so thick you could cut it with a knife. Every creaking floorboard, every dusty shelf, and every peeling wallpaper tells a story of decay, loss, and something much darker lurking just out of sight. The first thing you notice as the film unfolds is how the settings aren't just background, they're an extension of the characters themselves, particularly Jack. His home is a reflection of his mental state, cluttered, abandoned, haunted. The house feels like it's holding on to something, and yet it's slowly slipping away. There's a particular scene where Jack is walking through his living room, and the furniture, while ordinary, seems oddly out of place. Nothing matches. It's like he's living in a house that no longer fits him. Every object is a reminder of something lost, and the set design makes sure you feel it. The wallpaper is peeling, the old photographs on the walls seem to stare back at him with knowing eyes. It's as if the house itself is remembering and constantly reminding Jack of what he's lost. Then there's the shift when Jack steps outside. The locations aren't just practical, they're purposeful. The woods surrounding his house are dense, shadowed, and almost suffocating. There's a feeling of being swallowed up by the landscape. Trees are twisted, almost unnaturally so, and the path Jack walks seems to narrow with every step. These woods don't just provide a backdrop for the story, they serve the story, amplifying the feelings of isolation, fear, and disorientation that Jack experiences. The locations make you feel like there's nowhere safe, no escape from the world closing in around him. Even nature itself feels like it's part of the haunting. Then there's the cemetery. It's not just a plot of land where bodies are buried. It's a symbol of the weight Jack carries, the guilt, the need for redemption. The gravestones are cracked, uneven, as if the very ground refuses to let go of its dead. The mist that often shrouds the cemetery adds an ethereal, otherworldly element that blurs the line between the real and the supernatural. The gravestones are more than just props. They're part of the narrative, representing the buried truths Jack is trying to dig up. The props scattered throughout these locations are also worth noting. Old books, decaying furniture, and scattered personal items all come together to tell a story. One prop that stands out is a collection of old photographs that Jack obsessively clutches. These photos serve as visual symbols of his past, and they slowly decay alongside his mental state. There's something unsettling about the way these objects are framed, always just slightly out of focus or positioned in the background, like they're not just part of the environment, they're quietly watching. But it's not just about physical objects, it's about space. The way the sets are lit and framed creates a sense of confinement, as if Jack is never really free from his past. There's an oppressive feeling when he's in his home, and even when he ventures outside, the camera lingers on the spaces, trapping him in their grip. The cramped rooms and tight hallways make you feel the weight of his isolation. It's like the sets aren't just showing you where Jack is, they're showing you how he feels. Every doorway, every window frame feels like a cage, reminding you that there's nowhere for him to run. And let's not forget the use of contrasting locations. When Jack travels into the more supernatural spaces, whether it's a decaying chapel or an abandoned ruin, the set design shifts into something more ethereal, surreal even. The architecture here becomes otherworldly, with impossible angles and shapes that defy logic. It's not just a physical shift, it's a mental one, as if Jack is stepping into a world where the rules no longer apply, a world that's as warped and fractured as his own mind. Each location feels deeply connected to the story, enhancing the emotional stakes. The environments are never static. They change and evolve with the character's journey. When Jack is in turmoil, the locations grow darker and more oppressive. When he's reflecting or remembering, they feel haunted, echoing with lost time. The set design doesn't just build a world, it shapes the story itself, amplifying the emotions, the themes, and the ever-present feeling that something terrible is about to happen. In short, the settings and props aren't just pretty backdrops, they're active participants in the narrative. They deepen the story, enrich the themes, and make every scene feel more immersive. They are meticulously crafted to reflect the internal struggles of the characters, creating an atmosphere that is as essential to the film as the plot itself. You're not just watching the film, you're living in its world, one dark, decaying room at a time. Let's talk about the dialogue in Bring Her Back, and this is where things get really interesting because the script is a character in itself. The dialogue isn't just something that fills the air, it's an emotional weapon, a tool that brings the characters to life and pushes the story forward with devastating impact. It's not just about what's being said, but how it's being said, and the tension that each word carries. First off, the conversations between Jack and the other characters are loaded with weight. This is not a film where people exchange casual pleasantries or trivial small talk. Every line feels like it's been carefully chosen, as if the dialogue itself is a reflection of the emotional turmoil that Jack is going through. The exchanges have a raw, honest quality to them, where no one is pretending, and everyone is just barely holding it together. You can feel the cracks in their voices, the little hesitations before they speak, as if they're trying to say something, but can't quite find the words. It's in these moments where the script shines, capturing the deep loneliness and the desperation of the characters in the simplest phrases. Take, for instance, the subtle yet powerful moments between Jack and his estranged sister. Their conversations are terse at first, almost uncomfortable. There's an undercurrent of unspoken history between them, and the dialogue dances around this tension. Jack's lines are clipped, careful, as if he's afraid to open up. His sister, on the other hand, drops lines that are tinged with regret and worry, hinting at the lost time between them. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are moments of vulnerability, where the dialogue takes a turn and exposes raw, tender emotions. It's in these moments that you realize the brilliance of the script. It doesn't need to be verbose or overly dramatic to convey what these characters are feeling. It's the restraint that makes the dialogue hit harder, and it's clear that the writers know how to balance silence with sharp words. But it's not all heavy and somber. The script has moments of sharp wit, especially when Jack is trying to escape his mind. These bits of humor are brief, often sarcastic or dark, but they bring a sense of levity, giving the audience a moment to breathe before diving back into the tension. These clever one-liners come at just the right moments, cutting through the intensity and reminding us that even in a world of nightmares, humor can still exist. It's a sharp contrast to the weight of the story, but that's what makes it so memorable. Then, of course, there's the impactful writing in the supernatural encounters. The dialogue during these scenes is laced with a haunting quality, where the lines themselves seem to echo through the room. When Jack confronts the supernatural forces, the way the entities speak to him is both chilling and poetic. There's a certain cadence to their words, a rhythm that feels almost otherworldly. The script doesn't just make these moments scary, it makes them profound. The creatures aren't speaking just to scare Jack, they're speaking to break him down, to get inside his head, and their lines carry that psychological weight. It's chilling to hear them talk in such a calm, almost detached way about things that are completely unimaginable, but that's what makes their dialogue so memorable. What's really special about the script, though, is its ability to blend the supernatural and the very human. The supernatural entities might be terrifying, but the things they say resonate on a deeper level, reflecting Jack's own fears, regrets, and desires. It's like they know him better than he knows himself, and that's where the dialogue stands out. It's not just about external threats, it's about the internal battles that the characters face, and the dialogue is the tool used to explore these themes. And let's not forget the few standout lines that will stay with you long after the credits roll. One moment in particular, when Jack faces the creatures that have haunted him for so long, is so laden with meaning that the words themselves seem to reverberate in the air long after they've been spoken. These are the lines that, if you were to read them on paper, might seem simple or even cliché, but in the context of the film, they become pure gold. They capture the essence of the character's journey in a few carefully chosen words, leaving an imprint on your mind. The script also does something brilliant with silence. The dialogue never feels forced or out of place, and there's an art to knowing when not to speak. Sometimes, a pause between characters can convey more emotion than any monologue ever could. The pacing of the dialogue reflects the rhythm of the tension. There's a constant ebb and flow between moments of stillness and bursts of emotion. The way the script allows these moments to breathe gives it a grounded, almost organic quality that makes it feel like the dialogue is happening in real time. Ultimately, Bring Her Back doesn't rely on flashy monologues or over-the-top speeches to make an impact. The dialogue is precise, poignant, and powerful in its simplicity. The way the characters speak reflects their inner turmoil and their relationships, creating a layer of depth that you can feel with every word. It's not just about what's being said, it's about how it's being said, and the emotional landscape that each line carves into the audience's mind. When it comes to Bring Her Back, the genre itself becomes a playground for the filmmakers, and they take full advantage of every tool in the box. The film could easily fall into the typical horror or supernatural thriller category, but it doesn't settle for the standard jump scares and cliché tropes we've all seen 1,000 times before. Instead, it blends elements of suspense, psychological depth, and drama to create something that feels fresh, while still nodding to the conventions that fans of the genre love. It's a bit of a reinvention, really. From the very beginning, the film introduces you to a familiar setup. A tormented protagonist, Jack, trying to come to terms with a loss that he can't quite understand, and a world that seems to be unraveling around him. The horror is present, creeping, whispering just below the surface, but it's the way the film handles it that sets it apart. Instead of relying on outright shock value or supernatural gore, it draws you in slowly, turning the tension into a character all its own. The pacing is deliberate, almost meditative at times, and the suspense builds as much from what isn't shown as from what is. It's a slow burn that keeps you on edge without ever rushing to the climax. This is where the genre conventions get subverted. In a typical supernatural thriller, you'd expect an immediate escalation. Something happens and bam, you're in full-on horror mode. Not here. Instead, Bring Her Back lures you in with a sense of creeping unease. There are moments of suspense, of course, but they're often more psychological than physical. The film doesn't just make you jump, it makes you think, pushing the boundaries of the genre into more cerebral territory. The tension comes from watching Jack lose grip on his own sanity, questioning whether what he's seeing is real or just a product of his own unraveling mind. Then, just when you think you've got a handle on the genre, the film drops in a healthy dose of drama and character development. Instead of being a story driven purely by external threats, the heart of Bring Her Back lies in the emotional and psychological transformation of its lead character. The film constantly blurs the line between internal conflict and external danger. Sure, there are creepy supernatural elements, but the true horror is in Jack's mind, his guilt, his loss, his inability to move forward. The deeper you go into his psyche, the more you realize that the supernatural forces might just be a manifestation of his own grief. This is where the film really plays with the conventions. While other genre films might use supernatural forces to explain the plot, here the supernatural is often a mirror to the protagonist's inner turmoil. The film's ability to switch from genre to genre, horror to psychological drama to suspense, is something that keeps it exciting and unpredictable. The action and suspense sequences, while not as frequent as in a traditional thriller, are handled in a way that feels earned. There are no cheap thrills here, no chase scenes that feel tacked on just for the sake of excitement. Instead, the action is tied to character decisions, each moment of tension feeling like an extension of Jack's journey. For example, a late-night confrontation in the woods is not just a fight between Jack and a supernatural entity, it's the culmination of everything he's been through emotionally. Every action sequence feels like it's rooted in his character arc, rather than just an obligatory moment to raise the stakes. As for humor, it's there but not in the usual way. There's no comic relief character or forced quips. Instead, the film gives Jack moments of dark humor, a bit of sarcasm to cut through the intensity. These moments feel natural, like the kind of humor someone might use when they're losing their mind but still trying to keep it together. It's not out of place, it's just another facet of Jack's coping mechanism. These little glimmers of wit are scattered throughout the film, keeping it from ever becoming too bleak, while still respecting the dark tone. One of the more surprising elements in how the film handles genre is its refusal to let things settle into predictable patterns. In many films like this, you'll find a clear delineation between the real world and the supernatural, but Bring Her Back purposefully blurs that line. At times, it's unclear whether what Jack is experiencing is an actual haunting or a manifestation of his fractured mental state. This lack of certainty keeps you guessing, subverting the usual genre convention that supernatural horror is always about clear-cut boundaries between worlds. Instead, the film plays with the idea that sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't quite touch or understand. But let's talk about the supernatural elements themselves. This isn't a film that relies on the usual ghost or demon imagery. Instead, the creatures that Jack encounters are otherworldly in a way that feels entirely unique. They're not just faceless beings who exist to frighten, they're personal, as if they've been tailored to Jack's very psyche. These supernatural entities speak in riddles, move in ways that defy logic, and create a tension that lingers long after the scene ends. It's an exploration of fear that's deeply psychological, and because of that, it feels new and fresh for the genre. In terms of balance, Bring Her Back doesn't overdo any single element. It knows when to slow down and focus on the emotional weight of Jack's journey, and it knows when to ratchet up the tension. The suspense is constant, but it never drowns out the moments of personal reflection and growth. There are supernatural horror sequences, sure, but they never overshadow the heart of the story, the emotional journey Jack is on. It's a perfect dance between genre conventions and fresh ideas, with just enough twists to keep things exciting without ever feeling like the film is trying too hard to surprise you. By the end, Bring Her Back doesn't just deliver a supernatural thrill ride, it's a meditation on grief, guilt, and the inescapable weight of the past. The way it balances action, suspense, and drama within its genre is not just effective, it's what makes it stand out. It doesn't follow the rules, it writes its own. Bring Her Back is one of those films that doesn't just tell a story for the sake of thrills. It subtly weaves in commentary on contemporary issues that resonate far beyond its supernatural premise. The film is like an onion. You peel back the layers and there's more than just the surface-level horror. At its core, it's a reflection on the human condition, societal expectations, and how personal struggles are shaped by larger cultural and social forces. Take the central character, Jack. On the surface, he's grappling with the supernatural, but at a deeper level, he's struggling with a personal crisis that mirrors the broader societal themes of disconnection and isolation. Jack is a product of his environment, a world that demands more from its people than they can give, pushing them to the brink of mental collapse. The film doesn't shy away from addressing how contemporary culture's pressure to succeed, to be productive, and to bury one's emotional struggles can cause personal and collective breakdowns. Jack's own mental unraveling is not just a character arc. It's a reflection of the overwhelming demands placed on individuals in today's fast-paced, emotionally exhausting world. The film also touches on the idea of grief and how society often mishandles it. Instead of allowing Jack space to process his loss, there's this external pressure to move on, to get over it. There's a cultural expectation that we're supposed to just pick ourselves up and keep going, as if grief is something you can simply put a timeline on. Bring Her Back challenges this idea, showcasing the very real emotional toll that losing someone takes, not just in the immediate aftermath, but years later when the trauma lingers and manifests in strange, unexpected ways. This isn't just Jack's story, it's a universal commentary on how the modern world struggles to properly acknowledge and address mental health, loss, and personal suffering. The supernatural elements of the film also serve as a commentary on how we, as a society, confront the unknown. These strange, otherworldly creatures that torment Jack are symbolic of the unspoken fears and anxieties that everyone has to deal with in their own way. They represent the fears we bury beneath the surface, the things we don't want to acknowledge but can't fully escape. In a world where everything is hyper-connected, where everyone is constantly facing external pressures, these personal demons often manifest in destructive ways. The film taps into this pervasive sense of unease and illustrates how everyone is haunted by something, whether it's personal loss, societal expectations, or the inability to connect with others. There's also an interesting commentary on familial relationships. Jack's strained bond with his sister plays a pivotal role in the film, and it speaks to how contemporary families often fall apart under the weight of individual problems. The film explores how emotional distance grows between people when they're all dealing with their own unspoken trauma. This speaks volumes to the current state of many relationships in today's world, where people find it harder to connect meaningfully due to the chaos of their own internal struggles and the overwhelming nature of their busy, disconnected lives. The themes of isolation and the breakdown of community are prominent too. Jack is constantly searching for a sense of connection, but the more he seeks it, the more he's pushed away, both by others and by his own mind. This feeling of being disconnected from the people around you is a commentary on modern society, where it's easier to feel alone in a crowded room, where social media keeps us connected, but emotionally distant. The film takes that cultural anxiety and translates it into something tangible, showing how Jack's struggle to reach out is mirrored by his inability to escape the very personal nightmares that chase him. Then there's the theme of self-doubt and the lack of trust in one's own mind. In a time when mental health struggles are often minimized or dismissed, Bring Her Back gives voice to those who feel like they're losing touch with reality. It asks the question, how do you fight against something you can't see, touch, or even prove? In Jack's case, his personal descent into madness is paralleled with the social pressures that tell people to snap out of it, or to just push through their pain. It's a biting commentary on how mental health is often handled in today's world, not with understanding but with dismissal or even shame. Jack's journey becomes a metaphor for the thousands of people who are silently struggling, whose pain goes unnoticed or unaddressed by a society that prefers its problems to be neat, tidy, and easily solved. There's also a striking critique of the way the world views grief and trauma as something to get over, or move past, rather than something to heal from. Throughout the film, we see Jack being pushed by society to move forward, but the reality is that grief isn't something that can be neatly packed away and forgotten. Instead, it lingers, it changes shape, and it demands to be reckoned with in ways that society often refuses to acknowledge. The film, through its supernatural themes, emphasizes that trauma isn't something that just disappears. It's something that follows you, shapes you, and is never truly over. All these ideas are cleverly folded into the narrative without feeling preachy or forced. The film doesn't hammer these points over your head. Instead, they emerge naturally through Jack's interactions with others, his inner thoughts, and the constant tension between his reality and the supernatural forces around him. The commentary on contemporary issues is more about the way the world functions behind the scenes, how it affects Jack's journey, and how the film mirrors these broader societal issues through his personal struggle. By the end, Bring Her Back has said a lot about the state of contemporary culture, particularly around the subjects of mental health, isolation, and societal expectations. But it does so in a way that feels integrated into the story, not shoehorned in for the sake of making a statement. These themes are not just explored for the sake of commentary, they are woven into the fabric of the film's plot and characters, creating a narrative that's as socially aware as it is haunting. Zenotation spot audience engagement. Does the film emotionally resonate with its audience? Are there moments that elicit strong reactions? Laughter, tears, excitement, or shock? Does it invite discussion, repeat viewings, or deep reflection? Explain to audience in an engaging way. It should be fun and entertaining. Do not follow the conventional review structure. Do not include conclusions, etc. Discuss in great detail. Don't include emojis, references, links, etc. Keep the text plain. Don't divide with lines between paragraphs. Bring Her Back is a film that taps into the deep well of human emotion, effortlessly pulling you in and forcing you to confront uncomfortable truths. From the very first scene, it doesn't just ask for your attention. It demands your emotional investment. And once it has you, it doesn't let go. Whether it's through moments of heart-pounding suspense, gut-wrenching emotional realizations, or the quiet, haunting imagery that lingers long after the credits roll, this movie knows exactly how to engage its audience. Right off the bat, you're thrown into a whirlwind of tension, and the pacing keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's not just about the scares or the action. It's about making you feel the weight of every decision, every relationship, every moment that teeters on the edge of something bigger and darker than you might have expected. There's a heavy emotional core to the story that makes every shock hit harder, every triumph feel sweeter, and every loss deeply felt. The film excels in creating moments that you can't help but react to, sometimes with shock, sometimes with a sense of triumph, but most often with a quiet reflection. One of the most powerful aspects of the movie is how it lets the silence speak. At times, the film takes a step back from the action to focus on the characters' internal worlds. These slower moments are filled with emotional weight and tension, which means that when something finally happens, when the world of the film explodes into chaos, you're not just reacting to the plot, but to the deep emotional stakes that have been building. The emotions feel earned because they've been given time to develop and grow. It's not a roller coaster of thrills, but more like a slow burn crescendo, where every beat adds another layer of intensity. But it's not just about raw emotion. The film also gives you space to think. It invites you to reflect on the deeper themes of grief, isolation, and the struggles that live beneath the surface of our everyday lives. These aren't just surface-level ideas that disappear when the credits roll. They stay with you, gnawing at the edges of your consciousness. The way it blends supernatural elements with real-world emotional struggles makes it a perfect film for those who love to discuss the big questions. It asks what it means to cope with loss, to survive trauma, and to rebuild oneself in a world that constantly demands more. There's a certain power in how the film handles its characters too. As you watch Jack's journey unfold, you're not just rooting for him to defeat the creatures that haunt him. You're rooting for him to find peace, to heal from his personal wounds, and to reconnect with the world he's drifting away from. That makes every step of his journey feel personal, not just for him but for anyone who's ever faced their own inner demons. This emotional resonance is the kind of thing that sticks with you long after you leave the theater, or, in today's world, pause the streaming. And let's not forget the moments of pure excitement. Even if you're not a huge fan of supernatural thrillers, Bring Her Back knows how to draw you in with its mix of suspense and action. The way the tension builds to a climax keeps you hooked, and when the film delivers those punches, whether literal or emotional, they land hard. There are moments that will make you gasp, cheer, or just sit in stunned silence, wondering what you just witnessed. It's a thrill ride, but one that doesn't rely on cheap shocks or jump scares. Instead, it's all about building tension in a way that pays off. But what truly elevates this film is its ability to spark conversation. After you've seen it, you're going to want to talk about it. And that's where the true engagement happens. The themes, the emotional arcs, the relationships. Everything invites deep reflection and discussion. Whether it's debating the film's larger philosophical questions or analyzing the characters' choices, there's a lot to unpack. It's not just a movie you watch and forget. It's one that stays with you and you'll find yourself returning to it, analyzing the finer details, the subtext, and the little moments that make it so rich. And if you're the type of viewer who likes to peel back the layers of a story with each rewatch, Bring Her Back offers plenty to discover. Each time you revisit it, you'll pick up on new nuances, new connections, and deeper layers of meaning. The emotional beats hit harder after knowing how everything unfolds. The film doesn't just reward one-time viewers, it thrives on repeat engagement, offering new perspectives with each viewing. So, whether you're someone who loves the rush of excitement, the deep dive into character exploration, or the chance to have deep, reflective conversations long after the credits roll, Bring Her Back will engage you in ways that few films do. It's a movie that's meant to be felt, talked about, and remembered, making it not just a film but an experience that sticks with you. When you compare Bring Her Back to other films in its genre, you can immediately tell that it has its own distinct flavor. one that sets it apart from the usual offerings you might expect. It could have easily fallen into the trap of being just another supernatural thriller, riding the coattails of familiar tropes and formulas. But this film doesn't do that. It's not content with simply being a part of the pack. It stands on its own with a unique approach that blends haunting horror with deeply emotional storytelling. If you've seen films like The Sixth Sense or the others, you might think this movie is headed down the same well-worn path of supernatural reveals and ghostly figures. But there's something much more layered at play here. Unlike other supernatural horror films that rely heavily on jump scares or in-your-face terror, Bring Her Back takes its time to build dread. It's not just about shocking you into a response. It's about creating an atmosphere where the terror simmers below the surface. There are moments in this film where the real horror isn't what's happening on screen, but what's happening inside the characters' minds. The film uses its supernatural elements not as a crutch but as a mirror for the psychological and emotional turmoil the characters are experiencing. It's a deep dive into the human psyche, something that's often glossed over in more conventional thrillers. So, if you're coming into this film expecting a traditional ghost story, you might get more than you bargained for, and in the best way possible. The pacing of Bring Her Back also plays with expectations in a way that sets it apart from other films in its genre. Where many supernatural thrillers rely on a rapid build-up to a chaotic climax, this movie is slower, more deliberate. The tension builds not in bursts, but in a slow crescendo that grips you, subtly tightening with every passing scene. The film knows when to hold back, when to let silence linger, and when to pull you back into the action. It's this strategic pacing that helps create a sense of dread that feels more organic and less manufactured than what you might find in more formulaic horror. In terms of comparisons to other films in the director's filmography, Bring Her Back feels like a natural evolution. If you're familiar with the director's previous work, you'll notice a similar thematic focus on loss, grief, and the psychological complexity of its characters. However, this film marks a step forward in terms of narrative depth and emotional resonance. While earlier films may have leaned more heavily on genre conventions, like straight-up horror or action thriller beats, this one is more introspective. It's almost as if the director took the core ideas of their past work and asked, what if we explored this in a different way? The result is a film that combines familiar themes with a fresh perspective, adding layers of complexity that elevate it beyond a typical genre entry. Bring Her Back also stands out when compared to its genre peers in terms of character development. Where other films might prioritize spectacle or action sequences, this one leans heavily on the emotional journeys of its characters. The film invites you to care about its protagonist, Jack, not just as a vessel for the plot but as a fully realized character struggling with his own personal demons. His emotional arc is as crucial to the film's success as the supernatural horror elements, and that's something that's often missing in other films that play it safe by sticking to formulaic archetypes. Then there's the way the film handles its supernatural elements. Instead of leaning into big CGI set pieces or outlandish creatures, Bring Her Back takes a more restrained approach. The supernatural is unsettling not because it's flashy, but because it feels grounded in reality. The creatures that haunt Jack aren't just random horror movie monsters. They represent something more personal, something universal. It's an approach that places the human experience at the forefront, using the supernatural as a vehicle for exploring real-world themes like grief, guilt, and the consequences of our past actions. If you want to compare it to other movies in the supernatural thriller space, you might draw some parallels with films like The Witch or Hereditary, not in terms of plot, but in the way they approach fear and emotional depth. Both of those films, like Bring Her Back, take their time building tension and developing their characters. They aren't just about scares, they're about making you feel something. And that's where Bring Her Back truly sets itself apart. It's not just aiming to spook you, it's aiming to make you think, to make you feel the weight of its emotional and psychological impact long after you've watched it. When it comes to supernatural thrillers, Bring Her Back carves out its own niche by offering more than what we've come to expect. It's a film that's willing to take risks, whether it's in how it structures its narrative, how it balances its emotional beats with its horror elements, or how it uses its supernatural elements as a way to dive into deep psychological and social commentary. It's a film that invites you to reflect and question, rather than simply consume. So, while it may share some DNA with its genre predecessors, it's a movie that confidently steps into its own territory and leaves a lasting impact. From the very first scene, Bring Her Back plays with visual storytelling in a way that invites you to look deeper than what's immediately on the surface. The film doesn't just use its visuals to tell the story, it uses them to shape its themes, to underscore the emotional states of the characters, and to hint at the larger questions that the film grapples with. There's an intricate web of symbolism that runs throughout, so much so that it's almost as if every object, every scene and every color choice is loaded with meaning. One of the most striking motifs in the film is the recurring image of broken mirrors. These mirrors don't just appear as a casual visual cue, they're a metaphor for the fractured identities and lives of the characters. Jack's journey in particular revolves around his need to put the pieces of his life back together, to heal from his past, and these mirrors reflect that inner struggle. Every time we see a broken reflection, it's a reminder that Jack's world isn't whole, emotionally or physically. It's as if the pieces of his past are constantly slipping away from him, and every crack in the mirror deepens that sense of lost control. At one point, the shards of the mirror seem to multiply, symbolizing how Jack's internal conflict is expanding, and how the more he tries to piece it together, the more fragmented everything becomes. This visual metaphor is so powerful because it works on both a literal level, showing you broken glass, and a figurative one, tying it back to Jack's journey of self-repair. Then there's the use of the color palette, which feels intentional down to the last shade. Throughout the film, dark, muted tones dominate the visual landscape. Shadows seem to cling to the characters, particularly Jack, whose world feels like it's being consumed by darkness. The contrast between light and dark here is not just an aesthetic choice but a way of representing the battle between the characters' past and present, their grief and their healing. Light doesn't just illuminate, it highlights moments of realization, revelation, or emotional clarity. Every time a character reaches a new level of self-awareness or breakthrough, the lighting shifts, a subtle but powerful visual cue that signifies their growth. It's almost like the film's use of light is a metaphor for hope itself. A flickering, fragile thing that always feels just within reach but never fully grasped until the moment is right. Nature also plays a significant role in the symbolism. There's a certain recurring motif of storms, rain, lightning, and thunder. These weather elements are always tied to moments of emotional turmoil. The storm becomes a metaphor for the chaos inside the characters, particularly Jack. The pounding rain, the flashes of lightning, and the darkened skies seem to echo the chaos that Jack is experiencing internally. But what's interesting is that the storm doesn't always just signify turmoil. There are moments when the rain feels like a release, like a cleansing of the past. It's as if the characters are being washed clean of their guilt and pain, just as the storm clears the air. The storm then becomes a multifaceted symbol, a harbinger of emotional upheaval, yes, but also a symbol of potential renewal. The supernatural elements of the film also carry a heavy load of symbolic meaning. The creatures that haunt Jack aren't just there to scare you, they represent the things that haunt him in his real life. His guilt, his trauma, and his past actions take on physical forms, and the monsters in the film become a manifestation of those inner demons. At one point, a particularly terrifying creature seems to echo the face of someone from Jack's past, suggesting that the monsters in this film are not just figments of imagination but the living, breathing consequences of Jack's decisions. This blurring of the line between the physical and psychological is one of the film's strongest symbolic elements, reminding the audience that the real monsters are often the ones we create in our own minds. The idea of being lost also comes through strongly, and it's symbolized through the motif of doors. There are numerous scenes where characters stand in front of closed doors or pass through narrow, confining spaces. These doors represent the choices that Jack and others must make, the emotional barriers they must cross. But there's also a sense of doors leading to places of unknown terror. In this way, doors are symbols of both opportunity and danger, and the characters are constantly facing these thresholds in their journey, sometimes choosing to open them, sometimes closing them, but never escaping the fact that they're always on the verge of something new. Then there's the quiet use of nature. Trees, for example, frequently appear in moments of contemplation or emotional struggle. The trees seem rooted in the ground, providing a sense of permanence and stability, yet their branches stretch outwards in unpredictable ways, representing the tangled and often unstable emotional states of the characters. The roots, too, serve as a symbol of the past, the things that anchor you even when you try to move on. For Jack, the trees could represent the idea of being trapped by his past, no matter how far he runs. Ultimately, Bring Her Back is a film rich with symbolism and metaphor that adds a deep layer of meaning to its story. Every visual cue, every object, and every color feels carefully chosen to reflect the psychological and emotional themes of the film. It's a movie that rewards viewers who are willing to look beyond the surface and engage with the deeper meanings beneath the narrative. The symbolism isn't there just for aesthetic appeal, it's part of the storytelling itself, adding a level of complexity that makes the film far more than a standard supernatural thriller. It's a film that invites you to think, to reflect, and to interpret, giving it an emotional depth that's rare in the genre. Bring Her Back doesn't just stand alone as a singular film, it adds a fascinating layer to the evolving cinematic universe that it is part of, and the way it builds on its predecessors is something special. It's a part of a series that's slowly but surely carving out its place in the genre, expanding the lore and introducing new elements while staying true to its roots. The film is a natural extension of what came before, but it also manages to deepen the series' emotional and thematic stakes. Each film in this franchise has been building towards a larger narrative, and Bring Her Back doesn't shy away from carrying that weight while forging its own path. It introduces new characters and storylines that contribute to the overarching plot without losing sight of what made earlier entries so engaging. The transition from one installment to the next feels organic, not forced, and the way the story expands on previously established themes, like guilt, redemption, and confronting the past, feels like a natural progression of the narrative. What's brilliant here is that the film takes the grander mythology of the series and infuses it with personal stakes, giving viewers an emotional investment that enriches the larger narrative. As for historical context, while Bring Her Back doesn't exactly dive deep into historical accuracy, it isn't a period drama or a historical retelling, there's still a real sense of immersion in the world it creates. The filmmakers pull you into a universe that feels tangible, grounded in its own rules and logic. It's not just a throwaway thriller, it has a lived-in quality, even if that world is built on supernatural elements. There's a sense that the history of the characters, their backstories, and the larger themes of the film are drawn from something real, even if that something is a fiction. The film's setting, whether it's the weather-beaten towns, crumbling architecture, or eerie forests, captures a sense of place that feels authentic to the narrative, making you believe that these events could happen in a world just like our own. The attention to detail in how the story unfolds, especially the way it handles flashbacks and character backstory, helps you to feel like you're truly being transported into the lives of these people. It's a delicate balance, using the supernatural to heighten the stakes while never letting you forget that these are very human struggles at their core. The film also doesn't ignore the past, its characters' pasts, and the emotional weight of history weighs heavily on the narrative. While not strictly adhering to historical events, there's a deliberate effort to ground the fantastical in real-world struggles. You see echoes of real emotional and psychological themes from past movies, giving the audience a sense that this world has a long and complex history. It's not just about the here and now, it's about understanding where these characters have been, what they've gone through, and how the past shapes their present. In terms of franchise contributions, Bring Her Back does a wonderful job of taking the elements that worked in earlier films and expanding on them, offering something fresh while honoring the established mythos. The film builds on what was previously set up and pushes the franchise in new directions, all while keeping that consistent thread of personal conflict and supernatural mystery. It doesn't feel like a filler installment, it feels like a pivotal moment that deepens the lore while giving fans of the series something they've been waiting for. The stakes are higher, the characters more complex, and the narrative more engaging than ever. The film also introduces a few historical tidbits in the form of lore that ties back to older traditions, ancient rites, and deep-seated fears. These elements lend the film an aura of mystique, but it's clear that the creators wanted to do more than just rely on these tropes. They wanted to create a world where the supernatural history feels both accessible and grounded. It's almost like the film is subtly inviting you to read between the lines, to consider how real-world fears and stories have been twisted and evolved into this thrilling narrative. In short, Bring Her Back is both an evolution of its franchise and an immersive experience in its own right. It deepens the mythos while exploring universal themes that resonate with audiences beyond the genre. Whether you're following the series or stepping in for the first time, there's something incredibly rewarding in the way the film connects to both the past and the present, weaving together the supernatural with the very real human struggles of its characters. When we talk about the budget of Bring Her Back, it's easy to see where every dollar went. The production quality is sleek, the visuals are striking, and the sound design and CGI are top-notch, all of which speak to a budget that didn't shy away from putting in the resources to craft a captivating cinematic experience. You can feel that this isn't a low-budget affair trying to stretch its dollars to the max. Instead, it's a film that knew exactly what it wanted to accomplish in terms of its visual ambition, storytelling scale, and atmospheric tone, and the budget helped bring those elements to life in a way that feels polished and immersive. The cost doesn't just show in the stunning cinematography or the special effects. It's also evident in the attention to detail in the set design, the costumes, and the overall production design, all of which help create a world that feels rich and well fleshed out. This isn't a film that feels rushed or lacking in polish. It's clear that the money went toward creating an environment that makes the most out of every scene, When we look at the box office performance, it's important to consider how much hype and anticipation were surrounding the film before it hit theaters. The marketing campaign played a significant role in setting expectations. The trailer, teasers, and promotional materials all painted the picture of a film that was going to be intense, visually thrilling, and emotionally gripping, and that certainly brought an audience to theaters. However, the reception was a bit mixed once the film hit screens, which undoubtedly affected its final box office numbers. Some audiences found it to be a satisfying continuation of the franchise, appreciating its character depth and emotional stakes, while others felt that it didn't quite live up to the promise of its predecessor, leading to some divided opinions. When a movie walks the line between being a continuation of an established series and standing on its own, it can sometimes be a double-edged sword. Die-hard fans of the franchise may expect a certain type of film, while new viewers are looking for fresh ideas or twists. In the case of Bring Her Back, it seemed like it did a great job of catering to longtime fans but struggled slightly with capturing the wider audience. The financial success or disappointment of a film isn't just about the initial box office numbers, though. It's also about the long-term impact, including post-theater revenue, streaming deals, and audience word of mouth. The film had a solid showing during its opening weekend, but as the buzz began to die down, it became clear that its box office run wouldn't be one for the history books. That being said, the film found its footing in other areas, like streaming platforms, where it continued to perform well, thanks to a loyal fanbase that appreciated the film's deeper emotional narrative and supernatural twists. The revenue from these alternative channels helped make up for the box office shortfall, with the film finding new life as it hit home viewing platforms. The marketing definitely helped give Bring Her Back the visibility it needed to capture the attention of moviegoers, but the overall reception was a factor in whether those marketing efforts could translate into sustained financial success. Word of mouth can make or break a film in the long run, and in this case, while the film didn't exactly blow up in terms of box office revenue, it generated enough conversation to keep it relevant in pop culture discussions for months after its release. It's worth noting that Bring Her Back didn't have the budget of a blockbuster superhero movie or a massive franchise relaunch, but it did well with what it had, leaning into its strengths as a suspenseful, character-driven film. When looking at the financial numbers, it's clear that it wasn't a runaway success, but it also wasn't a total flop. It had enough impact to justify its budget, with its marketing and reception playing crucial roles in ensuring that the film didn't just disappear into obscurity. The film found its success more in the lingering influence it had on the genre rather than setting any box office records. Ultimately, while Bring Her Back didn't break any records at the box office, it carved out a space for itself in the cinematic landscape. Its budget served its purpose in delivering a quality product, and though it may not have been the financial juggernaut some hoped for, its success in the long run proves that it struck a chord with those who sought out its mix of emotional storytelling, supernatural thrills, and character-driven drama. It's a reminder that not every film needs to dominate the box office to find its place in the hearts and minds of viewers. For those eager to experience Bring Her Back, the film is available through a variety of viewing options, giving audiences the freedom to choose how they want to dive into the world it creates. While it initially made its debut in theaters, offering the big screen experience with all its atmospheric visuals and emotional beats, not everyone has the chance to catch it during its theater run. If you missed out on the opening weekend or didn't make it to a local theater, don't worry, Bring Her Back isn't just limited to the box office. For those who prefer the convenience of watching from the comfort of home, the film is available on streaming platforms, allowing you to enjoy it whenever the mood strikes. Whether it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, or another major streaming service, Bring Her Back has found a home where audiences can pick it up at their leisure. Streaming is great for those who want to hit pause, rewind, and really soak in the emotional nuances of the film. It's a chance to revisit the film's powerful moments or catch subtle details you might have missed on the first watch. Plus, with streaming options, you can watch it on your own time, allowing the film to take on a different rhythm based on when and where you're watching it. For those who want to experience the film on their own terms, digital rental services are a fantastic choice. These platforms often allow you to rent the film for a set period of time, which can be ideal if you're looking for a one-time watch without committing to a streaming subscription. This option brings the film directly to your device, whether it's your laptop, smart TV, or even mobile phone, so you can experience it with flexibility. But here's the thing. While digital and streaming are great ways to access the film, there's something special about seeing Bring Her Back in theaters. The big screen, the surround sound, the intensity of the visuals, it all comes together in a way that can't quite be replicated at home. The film's gripping atmosphere, its tension-building moments, and its visual grandeur are all designed to captivate you in a theater setting. If you're someone who loves that immersive experience, seeing it with a crowd can be a thrilling way to fully engage with the story. The collective reactions, the shared gasp at key moments, and the cinematic scale all contribute to making the movie night an unforgettable one. So, how should you watch it? It really depends on what kind of experience you're looking for. If you're all about that immersive, high-impact viewing experience, then the theater is your best bet. Catch the atmosphere in all its glory, complete with the full cinematic effect. However, if you're someone who likes to take your time with a film, pause it for deeper reflection, or watch it at your own pace, streaming or digital rental is the way to go. Each format brings a different layer to the film, allowing you to customize how you engage with its story. Whether you're seeing it in a packed theater or from the comfort of your couch, Bring Her Back offers an experience that stays with you long after the credits roll.